The Fender Supersonic 22. You know, the thing about this amp is... Hey everyone, I'm Jack Fossett and welcome to this demo review and tone tips video for the Fender Supersonic 22. Don't forget about this amp. This is a surprisingly great and versatile amplifier. Now this is on loan to me from my bass player Max.
This is Max. Say hi, Max. Hi, Max.
So this is not a sponsored review. I have my hands on this amp for a little while to do this video as well as several shootouts. Now, I for a while owned a Fender Supersonic 60 and I did a tone tips video of that one some years ago. It was one of my earlier of the tone tips videos. Now, this one is pleasantly much better than the 60 in my opinion. I think Fender seemed to really listen to feedback from artists, and this one just seems much more usable, whereas the 60, you could coax some great tones out of it, but you had to find a way to get past the harsh tones. You had to sort of fight to dial out the harshness and do some sort of tricky things. This one is kind of the opposite. This one is much easier to dial in great tones, and you have to try a little harder to get it to sound harsh. There's just a great range on the EQ, great range on the gain knobs, and it's very, very intuitive and works really well. So I'm very pleasantly surprised with this amplifier because I honestly wasn't expecting all that much when I borrowed it. I kind of needed to use it functionality for a few different videos, and the more I played it, I thought, you know, Fender really did a good job with this amplifier. So you've got your clean channel, which has two modes. It has regular and fat. And then you have your burn channel, which is your drive channel. Now, your drive channel is very, very tweakable. You've got a 3-band EQ, as well as your gain 1 and gain 2, which if you ever played a PV that have pre-gain and post-gain, it's kind of the same thing. Gain 1 is kind of like your preamp gain. It's a little bit more distortion-y. It's more gainy. And gain 2 would be kind of like your power amp gain, and it just is more robust and fatter. I've also seen like there was a Marshall that had a detail knob and a body knob. It's kind of the same idea, right? More grit and grain from gain 1, more body and oomph from gain 2. You also have reverb, and it has a 4-button foot switch to switch all these nifty little things, as well as an effects loop. And in the beginning, you were hearing a Wampler Metaverse into the effects loop. We're going to hear some more with pedals coming up. Now, all that said, there are a couple of little idiosyncrasies and little tricks that I thought work really well with this amp just to get the most out of it. The obvious one being the clean channel. Now, Fenders that have things like fat switches, obviously the most notable one of those is the Blues Junior. The one thing I've always found is that the fat switches sometimes can make it a little bit harsh around the edges. This one is pretty good, but there was a little bit of truth to that. Like, for instance, I didn't really care for the fat mode using humbuckers. I really liked it on the regular clean mode using humbuckers. And then the fat mode with single coils was fine, but you also had to dial it in the right way. They sound really good with the knobs pretty close to noon, to be honest, and not to be too boring about it, but for instance, on the clean channel, with Les Paul going into the regular clean channel, I really liked it with the knobs right at noon. And with the Stratocaster going into the fat channel, or the fat mode, I should say, I really liked it with the treble boosted a little bit and the bass pulled back just a little bit, and it just sounded really, really nice, but they were still close to noon. Now, when I give you some samples of the clean channels, I am going to do it like that. I'm going to do the Les Paul into the regular mode and the Stratocaster into fat mode, and I'm going to give you a little bit of generous amount of reverb so that you can hear the reverb on this. Then we're going to get into the drive. Now, the drive, like I said, has a great range on the knobs. It has some of those cool presets. There was the preset card that came with it. I always loved the preset cards, even if they were lousy. There was just something that was fun about them. I am going to give you a couple of samples of actually some of the presets. For instance, the Texas Blues one is really good. It's a really great sounding Texas Blues, which we're going to do the Stratocaster. Then the basic rock tone, that cleans up nicely, which it actually does. I'm going to do that with a Les Paul, but that one I'm going to be a little bit, I'm going to give it some artistic license on that one as far as how I dial in the EQ. When it comes to the burn channel, the most important tip that I have found is to make sure you use a generous amount of gain 2. Whatever kind of tone you're going for, whether you're going for a really heavy distorted tone or a milder edge of breakup tone, I think these amps kind of start to sound like a cheap distortion if you use too much of gain 1 and not enough of gain 2. Whatever kind of sound you're going for, gain 2 just fills it up and makes it sound warmer and really more professional and more musical. And you'll hear that coming up. I'm even going to get into some high gain for you folks. And you all know I don't do high gain. I'm getting away with this because I know that high gain players probably don't watch my channel. And let's be real, how many super high gain players are looking at a Fender Supersonic 22? I mean, it'll do it, but like, how much will it do it? Like, Slipknot? Probably not. But like, Dawkins? But you can do some reasonably cool, pretty hard rock, maybe bordering on metal. I don't know, I don't play metal. You guys figure it out. I'm getting off track. Let's move along. So I'm going to give you the basic rock tone, going to give you some high gain tone, doing that with the Les Paul. Also going to do that really cool Texas Blues tone, which I think is a massive selling feature of this amp. It just works really well. And then at the end, I am also going to hit it with an overdrive pedal, and we are going to hit it with a Shnobel Daily Driver, which is a really great kind of all-purpose overdrive pedal going into the clean channel, as well as using the effects loop again with the Wampler Metaverse. We're going to start with just the Daily Driver and then kick on the Metaverse going into the effects loop, and the effects loop is foot switchable. Now, for my last kind of overall tip about this amp, because Fender amps with their sort of bounciness and their sort of springiness, and with maybe a hint of harshness around the edges if you really dig in, and particularly when you're getting up to stage volume, this is a tip that works with a lot of amps, but particularly with this amp, I think this is true, and I'm doing this throughout the video. It really helps to very slightly notch your volume and your tone on your guitar. Not much, just to like 9. Sometimes not even to 9, just to the point where you almost hear like there's a little bit of a difference. That's what I'm doing, and it really just helps add this hint of softer sagginess to the way that you're playing. Very, very subtle, but very effective. Now, you can take that a little further. You might roll it off to like 8, maybe even 7, and then you have a little bit more. You can ride your volume when you're playing live, or you can ride your tone if you need just a little bit more edge when you're playing live to cut through. Those things are all good things. For today, I've just got it really just so that you can barely, right when you kind of notch it. But I think that's a good tip for these amps. If you're sort of having a hard time dialing out the harshness, maybe focus on your guitar and start there as opposed to having everything on full blast. So let's get back into some tone here. Please let us know in the comments. Do you have the Supersonic 22? Did you have the Supersonic 60? Do you have the Supersonic 60? Do you have another type of amplifier kind of similar in this range? This sort of seems like a graduation of some of the older Fenders from the Rivera era almost. It's sort of got that feeling to it from those old channel switching amplifiers from back when Fender was competing with Mesa Boogie. Let us know in the comments what you have, what you think. I'm Jack Fossett. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the video.